Okay, this is GamerBlave and we're back with True Remembrance. And if you missed the last video, then honestly, we didn't have a whole lot that really happened in that. What happened was we met a dog, Jackal, and basically there transpired a series of events with that dog that led up to a meeting. Hopefully, presumably the knock at the door here is going to be the character that was kind of, I'm going to go ahead and say, teased at the end of the episode that was before the last episode. So I actually thought we were going to meet her in the last episode, but we didn't get to. So I think we're just about to meet a new character right now. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So in my opinion, not a whole lot of significant stuff happened in the last one. It's kind of fluff. But anyway, we will continue, and I guess we're going to meet this new character. And based on the fact that there was so much build-up for this character, I'm guessing it's going to be pretty significant. So let's go ahead. Now, Law had her hands full, literally, with hamburger meat, so I went to see who it was. I looked out the peephole, and sure enough, there was someone standing there. I opened the door a crack. Is this the residence of Black Iris, the Demonicide? I came to thank you for finding him, my dog, a few days ago. For someone who lost track of dogs and envelopes on a regular basis, she was really rather punctual. I opened the door the rest of the way. Sure enough, there Jackal was, along with the young woman I'd bumped into at Aroma. Her face stiffened when she saw me. Maybe it was surprise, maybe it was something else. Anyway, she took a step back and gave me a look that was closer to a glare than anything. But Law came rushing out the foyer before she or I could say anything further. The woman opened her mouth to say something, but snapped it shut when she saw Law running toward her. So you're Jackal's master. Isn't that wonderful, Jackal? Aren't you happy to be with her again? Law squatted down to bring herself face to face with the dog. Then she looked up to our guest and inquired, May I pet him? Of course, he'd love it. The woman finally let a smile creep onto her face. She handed over the leash to Law, who took it gladly. Jackal, on the other hand, started jumping up and licking Law's cheeks even more gladly. Obviously, he remembered who she was. Aha, that tickles. When she turned back to me after watching Law and Jackal frolic about, there was no hint of iciness left in her eyes anymore. My name is Lips. Her name is Lips. Just gonna double that one right there. That lady's name is Lips. Okay. I'll go ahead and write that down, since I write characters' names down, although I do not think that I'm going to forget that one. I'm terrible with names, but I do not think I'm going to forget that one. Lips. I'm a Demonicide. I came here to thank you for taking care of Jackal when he needed it most, so if there's anything I can do for you, please. She said with a voice as clear as the winter sky. She bowed deeply. Her long hair spilled over her shoulders as she did so. Oh no, we didn't do much. If you want to thank someone, go see Rook, or the guy who operates Aroma. Oh yes, I've already done so. Oh, and here, I didn't have any idea about how to thank you, so I brought you some sweets. Black Iris doesn't like candy, if I recall correctly. Lips held out a nicely wrapped package. For a moment, I had no idea whether I should accept it or not, but only for a moment. I took the box. Well then, I'd best be off. And that's exactly what she would have done had Law not stopped her. Wait, Lips, would you stay a while? Okay with you, Black Iris? I wondered why she was asking me at all. This was her place as well, obviously. I nodded anyway. Law looked happy about that. You haven't eaten yet, correct? Care to have dinner with us? But, also, love to play with Jackal some more, may I? Whatever doubts Lips might have had, they evaporated at this point. She nodded with a smile. Then I'd love to. Thank you very much. She wiped her feet on the mat. Actually, Jackal came bounding up and imitated his master as well, and came on in. And Law, well, she was proving herself to be quite the host. She led Lips to a chair, brought her a nice cup of tea, and then went back into the kitchen to get dinner done. This left Lips and me alone together in the living room. She looked at me every once in a while. Obviously, there was something she wanted to say, but I ignored all that. After the cooking was done and the table was set, we took our seats. Lips looked totally amazed by the multi-course banquet that had been laid out in front of her. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble getting over this name. It's just a strange name. Of course, I mean, all of the names are strange here. I mean, Law is a strange name. It took me a while to get, it takes a while to get used to some of these names. Black Iris, of course, that's not a common name. Law, Black Iris, Lips, these are not common names. But I guess maybe since Lips is actually a word, I guess it's because it seems like a name that someone may actually take, and I mean, it would be like a nickname for someone that you would give, you know, you would either give it to someone maybe ironically, like if they had like, well, maybe not ironically if they had really big lips, or if there was something very characteristic about their lips, you would call them Lips. Or if they talked a whole lot. Or you'd give it ironically if they had, like, maybe, I don't know, very common lips. I don't know. There was something completely uncharacteristic about their lips. Or they didn't talk at all. But it just seems more like a nickname than a name, you know? It's just strange. It's just, every time I read that, it's just so weird. You know, to me, it's more of a word than a name. Oh, wow, you made all of this? I don't think I caught your name. Law. No, not at all. Not all. Black Iris helped too. No, wait. More like, he did everything, and I helped him. Well, that's interesting, because she went into the kitchen and Black Iris was out here, so he couldn't have done everything. She at least finished it. At least according to the account that we just got. A few weeks ago, that would have been true. Now it was a lie, though. Law had turned herself into an extremely good cook in the meantime. She'd come a long way, too. At the very first, it was dangerous to even let her handle a knife, but now, she basically ran the kitchen. Oh wow, I'm looking forward to this. I haven't eaten home cooking for such a long time now. Lips said with a gentle shrug. Law just beamed at her. After dinner, we had coffee and the sweets that Lips had brought us. Well, actually, I was the only one eating. Lips and Law were too busy playing with Jackal to be doing much of anything else. Lips, You're a mnemonicide, correct? Oh, yes, of course. Wait, aren't you one as well? I'm... She's my guest. I completed the sentence for her, as she didn't look like she was going to be able to get it out. Lips turned to look at me for a moment. Obviously, this was surprising to her. Well, surprising because, I guess other than Rook and Black Iris and Law, no one really knows about that, and the whole male being assigned a female guest thing is otherwise unprecedented. So, unless Lips knew about that assignment, that would probably be very strange to her. I see, you two, you get along so well that I thought mnemonicides have been known to move in together, Oh, no, it was like clockwork these days. Whenever anyone said something like this to Law, she invariably blushed, and furiously at that, in a matter of seconds. Have you been one for long? A mnemonicide, that is? Oh no, I've just wrapped up my first year of service, actually. I see. Wait, Black Iris, how long have you been one? About 3 years, I think. We talked about this and that, until it became very dark out indeed. Lips stood and indicated that she'd better be heading home. All right, I'll walk you to the station. Lips nodded silently. Law piped up, said she wanted to come along too, but I made her stay at home. I expected her to argue, but she looked up at me once, closed her eyes, and nodded. We walked along for a while. We said nothing to each other. Lips kept her eyes fixed on Jackal. I kept mine on the road ahead. But when we reached the copse of the trees, she began to talk. Dinner was so delicious. You'll have to tell Law thank you for me. Wait, I came to thank you in the first place, and now... I suppose... Enough small talk. I'd like you to return what you took from me. And what might that be? You know as well as I do, you've been holding on to something of mine ever since we bumped into each other at Aroma today. She stopped and held out a hand expectantly. I sighed and smiled bitterly. Is it the envelope? You say that so shamelessly, as if you had nothing to hide. But tell me, what were you doing with the gun? Whoa! I don't remember him mentioning that. Do not remember him mentioning that. She'd been concealing it earlier at Aroma. It was obviously when I bumped into her, which was why I picked her pocket without a second thought. Gee whiz. Because no one other than military personnel was supposed to have access to firearms in this town. Your heart is as black as your hands are sticky, I see. Well, maybe she's worried about all the terror threats. I think that's a legitimate concern. I'm afraid you ought to be a lot more careful about concealing something like this. You're not getting it back. Sorry. It's for self-protection, I swear. Please give it back. Self-protection against whom, I wonder? This town is a peaceful place, or at least it would be, if not for you and your friends. I brought the envelope out of my pocket. Lips went pale, and then started clenching her teeth. Did you read it? Obviously. This is a member list of your terrorist cell, isn't it? Makes me wonder why you even bother. So much for secrecy. Although, these are all code names, so there's no way I'd know who these people really are. Give it back. So you're either a secret agent investigating the bombings, or you're one of the terrorists, and I happen to know you're no secret agent. And Black Iris looks so happy about this. She clenched her teeth even harder then. It was a wonder that there weren't bits of enamel flying everywhere by now. But for how hard she was grinding her teeth, her glare itself didn't have much or any bite. I wasn't afraid. And what will you do? I wonder. This isn't proof of anything after all. Besides, something isn't right here. There's no way you'd just leave this lying at Aroma. And yet you did. What? Wait, that's... Which means that it was intentional, or that you're stupid beyond salvation. Clever of you. So you played dumb in front of law, and yet you knew all along. No. Actually, I had no intention of hiding my cards. Besides, Law knows a lot more than she lets on. You'd be surprised. In any case, I'll be holding on to this, and your gun, too. You're free to do whatever you want, of course, but just remember, so am I, and I won't hesitate to, if need be. I put the envelope back in my pocket and walked away. That's a very interesting turn of events right there. So I'm not really... Honestly, I'm not really sure what that... I genuinely don't know how to interpret what he means by you left the envelope there on purpose. I mean, like, she meant to be caught? She's not a secret agent. She's a member of the terrorist cell. She meant to be caught? I don't know. Like, I don't know how else to interpret that. I really don't. Or some kind of involvement with Rook, but if it was some kind of involvement with Rook, then Rook would have picked it up and got it out of there. He definitely wouldn't have wanted Black Iris to find it. He would have, I mean, Rook's a little bit more clever and savvy. I mean, Rook's a pretty sharp tool, and I think he takes care of his business in a pretty clean fashion, so I don't think he would have done that. So yeah, I honestly don't know about that one. I honestly don't know about that one. Something either slipped under or over my radar or something. I don't know. I think I missed something there. Either that or I'm just not connecting the pieces of the puzzle. I'm not connecting the pieces of the puzzle right. Lips stood there for a long time. She didn't look like she'd really grasped what had just happened. Yeah, much like me, Lips and me have a lot of things in common in this scene, I think. Interesting that I find myself having most things in common with Lips in this scene. The last I saw of her, she was trudging toward the trolley station. In darkness. Now, I wonder if that means the last he saw of her ever, or the last he saw of her, like, this evening. So I'm wondering if that's, like, the end of this character in the whole novel. That would be interesting, because we had so much build-up to meeting this character, and then we just had this, event happen here. I would be very surprised if that's what that means. I think we're saying that's the last of her this evening. That'd blow my mind. So I think that's pretty. I think that's probably a poor choice of words there. The last I saw of her there, but I don't know. Things were quiet for a time. The days went on without fuss. Law went on enjoying everything she could. I went on wondering just what kind of use I was as a guide. There was no news of bombings, or of terrorist groups, or of death. No news of Lips either. she'd stopped coming to Aroma altogether. Rook was a little, no, make that insanely unhappy about that last bit. The next time I bumped into her was almost a week afterwards, in broad daylight. Well, see, there we go. I was, well, I don't know if I would say wrong or right about that, but, you know, regardless, I'm glad that that was not the last that he saw of her. We'd finished eating lunch at Aroma as per usual, and were wandering around the area when Law found a bookstore. Now, Law loved books. She read them voraciously, no matter what genre they were, short fiction, non-fiction, horror, romance, science fiction, fantasy, she devoured them all. Speaking of which, I'd not taken her to the library yet. I'd promised her I'd do so some time ago. But then a lot, for instance, the bombings and lips happened. Which was why it had totally slipped my mind up until now. To be honest, I felt kind of guilty about that. Law, if you find a book you want to read, come get me. I'll be waiting over here on that bench. Law nodded with a smile and rushed into the bookstore. So they're going to a bookstore, not the library. And if there's a library nearby, I think I would definitely prefer that to the bookstore. You know, save yourself some money. Such a simple thing made her so happy. Made me wish I'd figured that out about her a lot sooner. Then again, this was the kind of thing that I never noticed until it was too late. I looked around the area. It was largely deserted. Here and there, people went about their business. One of them was walking toward me. I looked closely. This was a face I knew. Then she was standing before me. I came looking for you, after I heard from Rook that you'd gone out shopping. She asked me if the seat next to me was taken. I motioned her to it. She sat down. Listen to me. They know about the list. I don't think they know that you have it, but still, be careful. You haven't destroyed it, right? If you have, then I can't help you. No leverage, see? So I hope for your sake. Oh, speaking of which, I'd like my gun back, please. It's too late for any of that. I have annihilated both of them. She narrowed her eyes, obviously. She thought I'd set a trap for her or something. I just waved her into silence. Then I motioned her to take a look around us, a good, long look. You were followed. I stopped her from thrashing about too obviously, and then I sighed, deeply. It looks like you can't help me at all. I'm sorry. There was no point in getting angry at her at this point, and in any case, one of our mysterious observers was hiding under the eaves of that building over there, but at that range, she probably couldn't make out a word of what we were saying. Oh well, don't worry about it. I'll deal with this myself. You probably ought to go hide somewhere, though. This might get messy. Is he gonna pull out the gun and just blow this guy away? What makes you think I'll do that? Give me my gun, please. Well, I mean, just from Black Iris's perspective, now you just brought a world of, you know, stuff to his front door, and now you want to take the gun away from him? I mean, give me a break here. I think he needs it now. I mean, just from a practical perspective, my goodness. The plot has just thickened, ladies and gentlemen. The plot has just thickened. I mean, it would seem that things have gotten, that we have taken at least potentially a radical turn here The tone of the whole thing has just changed in the last 10 minutes, substantially. I mean, I mean, just with the introduction of this character, I mean, you know, I was saying, you know, they were definitely teasing this character a lot, and I'll try to save my thoughts on this for too much. They were teasing this character a lot, and you could see the introduction of this character, just the moment that this character has come into the picture, unless that this is not actually going to shift it, it has completely just changed the angle of the story substantially. But we'll go on and I'll talk about it a little bit later. I have no idea what you're planning on doing, but I'll tell you one thing, it won't work. Lips just clenched her teeth again for a time. It seemed like forever. Finally, she nodded, stood, and left. And although they were trying to be inconspicuous, it was obvious that several people were tailing her. One of them, the man from before, stayed in the area. He was obviously focusing on me, so I gave him no reason for suspicion. I waited there for Law, and soon enough, she came running toward me with a heavy-looking bag in her hands. I found lots of books. They all look so fun, makes me really happy. For a moment, I forgot all my troubles and smiled back at her, but she already caught on that something was up. She looked up at me gravely. I stood up, and we began walking down the street. Sure enough, we were being followed. Like Iris? Was that Lips you were with? Yeah, it was. She seemed like she was in a real hurry. I see. She stopped and looked back for a second, the disappointment obvious on her face. It was really quite amusing to watch the man almost jump out of his skin and then duck into a store for cover. Oh, Law, I have something to do, so would you mind waiting for me at Aroma? That's fine, but... I smiled ambivalently. I didn't want to say much more to her about what was going on at this point, so we headed on over to Aroma. Now, obviously, the people who were tailing me knew all about Aroma. They had to, given that they'd originally been after Lips, but Rook could probably take care of one guy easily, and then some. So after I deposited her inside, I walked back out. My shadow looked a little confused as to whether he should stay and observe Law or follow me. Eventually, he chose to come after me. I lost him fairly easily as I made my way through the back alleys of 6th Street. This old quarter of 6th was a maze of twisty passages, all alike. It was hard to find your way, even with a map, if you didn't know the area. I wasn't sure that this would be enough, but sure enough, no sign of my follower. He was even less intelligent than I'd expected. So I doubled back and started shadowing him. He'd found his way back to 6th Main Promenade by now. He walked toward the trolley station and then went right past it. He was heading for 5th Street on foot. 5th Street was filled with residences. I, of course, happened to live in one of these when I wasn't on duty. The man looked to his left, to his right, behind him. He was obviously spooked. Finally, he shrugged and walked into an old apartment complex. I found a hiding place and waited, but my shadow did not re-emerge. Instead, it was another man who stepped out into the daylight. A man whose face I knew. He headed down the street and into the trolley station. I stopped my pursuit at this point. There weren't many passengers on the trolley, even on heavy days, so I didn't want to risk discovery. Because if I knew who he was, the opposite had to be true as well. Well, who was he? Dadgummit. So, okay, so let's see. He pursued, let me go ahead and write this down. Black Iris pursued pursuer to Fifth Street, where he saw someone he knew, but we don't know who that is. Very interesting. Law was nowhere to be found by the time I got back to Aroma. My heart sank. I turned to Rook and asked him what had happened. Oh yeah, that lady who owns Jackal came by a bit ago. Said you had something of hers that she needed, double quick, so Law went with her to find you. Why, what's... Oh man. Holy crap. They've kidnapped Law. That's pretty intense. That's pretty freaking intense. Oh man. I sprinted out of the place before Rook could finish his sentence. Damn it all. It was too late now. But for crying out loud, I should have told Rook that something was up. Lips probably thought that her list and her gun were at our place on 8th Street. No wonder. So that's why she went after Law. I caught the next trolley to 8th. The train hadn't even stopped when I jumped off and started sprinting down the streets. When I got to the copse of trees, I noticed the profusion of footprints all around, big ones and little ones. Law's. This was just getting worse and worse. I checked to see that I had the gun on me, got ready to whip it out at the moment's notice, and kicked open the door to our place. The house was completely silent. It had obviously been ransacked, but there wasn't a soul around anymore. No, actually, Lips was sitting motionlessly on the living room floor, although I was beginning to doubt that she had a soul. Lips, what did you do to her? She looked up slowly, as if her mind were swimming in mud. Then her eyes opened wide. She took my arm and refused to let it go. She was shaking. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I thought I'd lost them for sure, but... Great. She was going to have to calm down now. We were just wasting time here. Although, I did have one crucial piece of evidence now. She'd been followed to our place. That's why the terrorists knew to strike here. Sorry about that. I think I'm fine now. She let go of my arm, took a few big breaths, and began to explain what had happened. So I came to your place. I wanted to get my gun back from you, at the very least. But the moment I got into the house, a couple of men from the group rushed me. 3, maybe 4. They took me down pretty quickly. Law tried to help me, but... She was taken hostage, was she? Most likely. They'll probably demand the list in exchange for her. And... do you know where they are? I have no idea. They've been operating from an apartment on 5th, but they know something's up now. If they're intelligent at all, they'll have moved to another safe house by now. Great. Now what? If I proceeded about this the wrong way, Law was going to be in grave danger. But I couldn't just sit here and do nothing. I'm sorry. This all happened because I was sloppy. So I'll make things right, somehow. I'll be fine. She said as she got up off the floor. She certainly didn't look fine. Her face was pale, and her legs were shaking a bit. I sighed and stopped her before she went out the door. I appreciate the sentiment, but you'd better stop. But if you fail, then you won't be the only one who dies. Law will too. So that's quite enough out of you." She looked like she was about to cry, out of frustration and anger. I surveyed the wreckage around the room. Poor Law, all her tidy housework had gone to waste. Our assailants had obviously been very thorough in their search. But I have to do something. We have to save Law. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. But Lips just shook her head violently. "It's my fault this all happened. Yes, that's true. But there's something else. She knew about me. She knew everything. And still she tried to rescue me." "So you told her about the group then?" "Yes. There wasn't any way I could avoid it. She made me say everything, just what it was you'd taken from me, just how dangerous it would be. And then she brought me to your place. They tried to take me hostage too, you see, but she assured them that she'd be sufficient. They believed her." Suddenly, a line from a book I'd once read flashed into my mind. Something about idiocy, claptrap, and hysterical folly, roughly in that order. But I also realized, with dawning horror, that it was just like Law to do something like this. She's such a good girl. I love her in my own way. I consider her my friend. That's why I'm coming with you, whether you like it or not." "Very well." Darn it. Okay. Where was that? My own way, I consider her my friend. That's why I'm coming with you, whether you like it or not. Very well. Not like you'd take no for an answer anyway. Okay, there we go. Let's get going. Even if the group tries to contact us, they won't come here to do it. You have a telephone at your place? No, I don't find it necessary. Fair enough. Not many people in town had telephones, and the reason for that was simple enough. Many of our guests had an extreme aversion to them and their incessant ringing. Then we'd better head to Aroma. I agree. If they decide to get in touch with us, it'll be there. Gee whiz. There was no point in searching around blindly. That would hurt more than it would help. So for now, we were going to have to wait. My goodness. Holy crap, ladies and gentlemen. That's pretty intense right there. That's pretty intense. Wow. Well, on that note, I do think that we are... Oh, gosh. Oh, man. I think we are going to take a break there, because I think if we kept going right now, I think we would probably just have like a 17-hour video here. But man, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, they had hinted at this character for a couple of episodes before they actually introduced them. So I had mentioned, I think that the introduction of this character is going to be very significant. And I thought that, maybe they're going to be a very significant mnemonicide, and they're going to have some kind of very profound impact on something. But I hadn't really given a whole lot of thought, honestly, to this, all of these terrorist ongoings. I kind of thought that they were going to be some kind of backdrop that was going to have something to do with, I don't know, triggering some kind of sadness or some kind of emotion, something about just general, problems with just kind of human problems and confronting, emotions and things like that. And maybe not with Law, but perhaps, with another guest and something like that. So I hadn't honestly really considered that we were going to kind of arc in this direction. But the introduction of this character has certainly, really shot us in another direction, because I would say that, up until this point, and what I think that this is the ninth episode in this series. I might be wrong. 8 or 9 episodes. So, we're a good bit into this. Yeah. We've got, 6-7 hours of content here. And, it's been a pretty calm, relaxing read so far. And then the introduction of this character just kind of shoots us off on, this very, tense adventure. Not necessarily adventure, but where we have a kidnapping, and there's a terrorist organization, and there's a gun involved, and so there's definitely the threat of mortal physical violence and whatnot. So we've got a very stark change and a very immediate, complete shift in the tone of what's going on here. So it's a pretty interesting move there. So I am kind of interested to see how that plays out, and how this particular scene plays out, and how that kind of goes into how that's gonna really affect Law's treatment, I guess you'd say. And I guess whether or not they're going to be able to deal with, the terrorist situation as a whole. And I guess what Lip's involvement was really with them. So, all that stuff really remains to be seen. So we definitely have a lot of kind of interesting stuff going on here. And yeah, very, very big change here. Very big change. I did not really see that coming. Even though they definitely were kind of dropping hints in this direction. So, I guess if you were really reading between the lines, or not even really between the lines, now looking back, I guess it wasn't really as, as abrupt as I thought it was, or, as it seemed to me. It just why I wasn't really picking up on all of the hints. I wasn't picking up on all the hints. I was just reading them and letting them go right by me and thinking, oh, that's going to have something to do with something else. That's going to have some kind of, passive effect or background effect on the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. I think that was probably because of the fact that it was such a casual read up until that point. We just have this terrorist stuff going on in the background, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to see how that happening, nearby, how that is going to play on her emotions, and how that's going to just affect how they feel, I guess. But no, they're actually getting into the thick of it, so to speak. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. But anyway, all of that being said, if you like this video, then remember to hit that like button. And if you liked it a lot and you want to see the rest of this visual novel or anything else that I may be playing on this channel and you are not currently subscribed, then go ahead and subscribe as well if you are so inclined. But regardless, as always, thanks for watching, and we are going to be picking up right here next time.